Welcome to Airing Our Thoughts on the new series Bel Air. This is a dramatic reinvention of The Fresh Prince of Bel Air. It was a show in the 90s with Will Smith, and a young man approached him about doing a dramatic reinvention of the show. And this is what they came up with. And The Fresh Prince of Bel Air was on for 6 seasons. And this is brand new. It all is something we probably thought about at one point or another. Why would a mom send her child away for the remaining of his teenage years to family and seems like they were somewhat estranged. And so this is that take on it from the perspective that we wondered about in our backgrounds, but wasn't approached at the time. So these are our discussions.
Awesome. So happy to be here with everyone. The show was so good that we all collectively were like, we have got to jump together and collaborate and share our thoughts. So we'll just jump right in. As long as the series is going on, you'll see us posting episodes about it. Ricky did do some research in the back. There are 10 episodes, and we're going to cover each one. So many good themes and different topics are in everything. So we should have some rich dialogue and conversation.
Absolutely. Let's introduce yourselves.
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Steph Jones, but on social media, I'm Lilac Calandra. I have a podcast called The Freedom Cast. Excited to be just collaborating and dumping thoughts and airing our thoughts out.
Awesome. Well, I'm Rikia, also known as Rickey Z. I own a social media and podcast management business, as well as co-host a podcast called Geeking Out through Wonelli Media.
I am Eleanor, better known as Coach E, and I specialize in grief. I have a show on Instagram every Friday called the Grief Walk Talk Show. And I am personally trying to get into other avenues. So I was super excited about this because I love to talk and be into some of the latest things going on. So I'm excited. Outside of wearing the wrong lipstick today, I'm good.
You still look good. It's fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, you look great. What do you mean? You look amazing. Yeah. So let's jump into it. How did we feel about knowing that there was a remake of Bel Air? What are our first thoughts, initial reactions, and how did we enter into watching this new series?
Ricky, you want to go? You want me to go?
Yeah. I mean, like it's, in honesty, it's kind of the wrong. It's already been like adding to the like we already have reboots upon reboots and reinterpretations and of things that used to be on as not as like as soon as like the early 2000s. Like Gossip Girl has a reboot, but like I was hesitant about it, but I was willing to give it a chance.
I'm not gonna lie, I was mad. I was upset. I was like, you are going to besmirch something. Y'all already messed up replacing Aunt Viv. So I already had a stank attitude having to watch the last couple of seasons with the wrong Aunt Viv. So I was really like, I am not cutting this on. And then as it kept showing up in that peacock window, I was like, they're not remaking it. They're giving a different view of it. They're not really rebooting it. It's a different take. So when I started watching, they did a good job. I got hooked.
I mean, I share the same sentiments as both of you. I was like, why are we rebooting this? Why are we making this? Do we not have any creative juices flowing that we can't come up with another concept? Then I watched the episode and I said, oh, you know what? I didn't know I needed this in my life, but I did. I was like telling Ricky before we started recording, I was like, I'm a purist, like I like the original things. When they redid The Lion King, I was like, ugh, terrible.
I didn't see that.
You don't need to. It wasn't worth. No, don't do it.
And they tried to pump it up with Beyonce. Here's what I thought of it, just like that. Okay. They did that with Mulan. I'm like, you know what? Why? Why do we need to do this?
Yeah, I recently watched Sex and the City. I don't know if you guys are fans, but I could have thrown up every episode. It was just that awful. I'm like, you ruined a beautiful franchise. You could have left this wherever you got it,
Right.
Yeah. The problem with Lion King though is just they were literally redoing the same movie script and all without the benefit of like the human emotions that you could put in a cartoon with these animals, as computer CGI animals. Like you can't get Simba crying and being sad on a CGI animal like you could on an animated one. It didn't work.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't see it. It just, I was like, no, it's not in my spirit.
Right. Yeah. See, that's that good discernment. I wish I had listened to my spirit, because
That was one time I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to ruin it. I'm going to just walk away from that. Mulan scene, I had read stuff before of how they switched the story. And I said, no, you've literally got 2 or 3 original animated movies about this girl and how her life, you know, she did the Mulan thing. She got engaged and then she became a consult for the king at that time. So there's enough movies on her. We didn't need to go change her whole story. But, for me, when I started this, I was kind of like, should I let my guard down? And I said, I'm just going to sit here and not be judgmental of it. And the writing is phenomenal. And the casting is done well too. I know people were feeling some way about the casting, but I'm okay.
We'll get into that, because I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of the casting, I mean, I liked that they had Aunt Viv who looked like the original Aunt Viv. I thought that was a great touch. See, I was nervous, ladies, because I'm like, okay, we know the switch. Coach E mentioned it. Like, it's not the elephant in the room. It's right there, smack dab. I don't know if you all watched that reunion. Did you watch the Fresh Prince reunion? That was such an emotional, freeing. I felt like I was healed in that moment. I had nothing to do with either one of them, but I felt like I was really healed in that moment because they were able to come back together. But the question was, when you do a reboot, do you do the old Aunt Viv or the new Aunt Viv? I was so happy. I mean, a huge grin on my face when I saw that it was an Aunt Viv who looked like the original one.
I don't think you can do the new Aunt Viv. It's no offense to Daphne Maxwell Reid. I think she's a phenomenal actress in other roles, but if you look at her career, she really hasn't played a mom in a lot of things. That's never been her forte. So I was very shocked when they even placed her in as the replacement, because I'm like, that's not her deal. She does other stuff and she does well with what she does, but that was never her forte. So I think he knew it's not going to work without the right type of look, woman. And I'm glad they brought her back in to show that she had this phenomenal artistic background, because the original Aunt Viv had all those things, art and dance. She left that to get Phil where he was. So I appreciate that they're showing this woman's got a lot of dimensions that she walked away from. And new Aunt Viv never displayed those things. She just blurred in the background and had a baby on her hip. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right. They not only like changed Aunt Viv, like the actress, but like they literally changed that character. They literally changed that character to someone that was literally just a housewife, whereas we know that the original Aunt Viv was still a career woman. But it's so nice to see that it's a dark skinned family, the entire family.
Yes.
Well, with maybe the exception of Ashley, but like literally the entire family.
Yeah. Because
it was refreshing. Yeah. It was super refreshing to see. And then I'm thinking, even just back to Aunt Viv, like, okay, I couldn't see the new Aunt Viv doing that big dance number that, the original Aunt Viv did with the leg up and all that. Like, so you're right.
Across the world. You got people doing the Aunt Viv number all over the world. And I hope that woke him up to understand how vital she really was, because I don't know if you saw his comments a few weeks ago when I think he was talking about King Richard or something, and somebody snuck in a question about that, and he said, "Oh, I admit now, changing of Aunt Viv changed the entire show, but not for the better." So I was appreciative that he said that.
Yeah.
Because it didn't do the show any justice. She was just there, and I used to be like, let her. All she ever said was Phil. That's all she ever did.
Right. Yeah. She had a few lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are our pictures of the other characters?
I was shocked at what I'm trying to figure out Jeffrey's role. I have a feeling this time he's not just the house man.
No.
Because you can't get to where Phil was if you don't have a Jeffrey, kind of like the one in this particular show. So I'm like, okay, this is some intrigue, because he's not in there cooking and cleaning. He's not.
I haven't seen him clean one thing. I haven't seen him cook one thing. He doesn't
Nope.
even have an apron on. I
I
haven't
haven't
seen a
seen him
duster.
dusting nothing.
Thank you.
And
He's not even in the butler uniform. He's in the night.
No.
He looks nice. Now the
he's
brother,
in $1,000 suits. He's
he
in
looks
$1,000.
nice.
I'm loving
Right.
it. I'm like, what is this man to Uncle
Who is
Phil?
this? With the
Like
accent?
I have yet to see him like actually manage the house as much as I've seen him like play pool and drink some scotch with Uncle Phil. Like that's what
Be
I've
on
seen
the
him do.
phone, go ahead and kill him. I'm like, what?
Right.
Right.
Calling hits on people. I have not seen him do any domestic anything. A
Not.
pot, a pan, anything. So I like that, and I like that they delve deeper into the storyline. I believe now that Will had to go in both stories, right? In both series, Will had to go based on what they showed us. It's like they peeled back the layer. I mean, everybody, okay, you know the opening song, you hear about it got in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Everybody knows it.
I'm in total agreement with that because the first show we had to laugh through it because that was the time period that was just sitcom. But when we watched that show, like he said, the guy got mad, something went down, and next thing
More
he was.
realistic.
So that's very true. The stuff people don't understand that can happen on a playground in the hood where your life just changed in minutes, and you may not be there the next day over something stupid, scuffing a shoe. You maybe Will shot too many balls on him at the playground, whatever the case may be. But that kind of stuff is very real. And so to me, as that played out, I was like, okay, now they're flipping it to show us the danger he was really in and how he had to get out to survive.
I really appreciated how they start us off in Philadelphia.
I do too.
I like that we get to see Will. You get to see his mom. You get to see his mom and interacting with him and his friend Trey, and like him being the basketball star and being the neighborhood kid, and like him, because when you remember back to like the early days of the sitcom, like he was Philly this, Philly, like he was all about Philly, but like you get to actually see him be all about Philly in that first episode.
And I don't like the character Trey, but I remember him from the first series. He wasn't talked about until the very episode he showed up. So we had no background on Trey. We had no reason why Will was so nuts about Trey. And throughout the episode in the original series, Trey was very problematic. But now we kind of see the great influence he has on Will in this series as to why when he does show up later on, the repercussions of that. But it helps us to understand their friendship.
Yeah, it gives us a greater dynamic into what exactly is going on. I mean, right, we have to kind of formulate our own ideas in the original series. Like, okay, they're friends. We know they grew up together, but now we got to see that they were in something together, something traumatic together. They went through something traumatic together. And then I also like that they're showing how sometimes that happens. Like someone could be a really good star or really smart in school or really excelling. And people in the neighborhood, that jealousy, that crap in the barrel, that's true. So that's what I like. It was so realistic and it was so like, yes, this can actually happen. The way they made it lead up, to me, I didn't see anything that was like, oh, that's a stretch or I have to like put on my creative hat to say, oh, this couldn't happen. All of that could happen. The way everything that happened, I said, I've either seen it happen or I've heard it happen.
Right. The kid that could have been just as good as Will if he didn't get caught up in the game, and that jealousy of just not being where he is and then challenging him to it, and that seemed pretty reasonable to me. That was probably some realistic
even
stuff.
as we see in the first episode, he's so connected to Will, he doesn't know his own potential. And so, of course, if that separates, that's going to start changing some things because he equates his talent to being connected with Will, whether he realizes or not. And I don't know how you guys felt about the mom. I kind of felt like there, for the first time, we understood there's a division from the sisters. In the first series, they acted like the sisters were super close no matter what.
Yeah.
But in this series, there's obviously some estrangement, something going on in the family, and they're not talking about it. And to me, his mom was kind of putting all the weight on him to get them out of Philadelphia. That's the first episode. I'm like, wow, she's really kind of laying it on. Get out of Philly. And you're a superstar and they're coming for you, because I think she felt like, okay, he's going to get me out now too. So
Yeah, that's an interesting concept, and that's a reality too. I love how real the show is. Not to
mhm,
say the original series was fake, or but this is like real life, and maybe because I'm older now and I've experienced life a little more than when I was watching the original series. I was born in '88, so that series came out. I was right. Hey now, I was young, right? And then okay, teenager, you start watching reruns and stuff like that. But I'm an adult. I've been through some adult things, and so now I'm like, I really connect with that estrangement with the sisters because it's true that can really happen.
Hmm.
Look at man, Viv is like living the life. She's living the dream. Like that house, I was like, their jaws dropped, Jazz and Will's jaws dropped. I was like, oh, this is a nice house.
Hmm.
There has to be some resentment. I don't know, some jealousy, some envy, all that stuff kind of wrapped up in a Molotov cocktail, and then it just causes like a bomb between the relationship. That's real, and that's real life. Some families separate economically, and this is what we're seeing right now.
I'm hoping we get some more background on the sisters' relationship and like where how did they end up where they ended up, like how, because obviously I'm well I guess they're both college educated because Vi is a nurse, but
mhm.
like where did that switch up happen for them, like how did they get so separated to where like
I
they're
think
on
in this
completely
series,
separate coasts.
Right.
I feel like she may have invited Vi out there or something. Who knows? I think in this series it's coming, but I think somewhere Will's dad has a big place in this, and I'm like, what bombshell is going to come?
Yes.
It's just
Because they
kind of
said it.
underneath it all, because in the few conversations they've had, you're kind of like, okay, something's brewing about the dad. Is
Yes.
the vibes connected to Viv, or what's up with that? So, and I don't think Vi would live off of him, but I think she felt like that's the ticket. So when all this stuff happened, it really threw Vi for a loop, and why she chose to stay in Philadelphia versus maybe going somewhere else when Will's dad left. It's kind of like, okay, what's going to happen? And I
Hmm.
think, I look at the original series, I don't think we could have handled it at that time, what they're covering now, because that was just sitcom time. Everything was a sitcom, and that's all that they were pushing out, and that's what we were used to watching.
Hmm.
And they had serious moments in there, but of course they were kind of covered in the way that you may not have caught them till later.
Yeah.
Um,
And you really only
and,
had like one episode where they actually like really discuss his dad in the sitcom.
That's right. That famous scene, when he's crying, "Why do you want me?" I mean
why
that
you don't
scene.
want
That
me back?
why you don't want me, man? Yeah,
Actually,
the cry,
if you look
man,
through it,
gets me every
that
time. But
that's not true. He was sprinkled in the old series too, but they never got deep. If you pay
no,
attention, Viv and Phil would have those conversations, and then they would go, "But we're not gonna bother
say
Will about it."
anything else. Yep.
And so I remember those. They were sprinkled. It was sprinkled. So it was kind of like, oh, this stuff is there, but it wasn't explored. And I find that interesting. Ashley, I wonder what they're trying to do with her. Um,
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, so I think a couple of things are happening, right? We are ready and prepared for a more dramatic and serious Bel Air, right? Okay, so we're prepared for that. Then if we're tying in all the gender and all of those conversations, they want to represent everybody. So I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised that, that character would be coming up. I'm interested to see how they flesh her out and how things come up. But again, I'm not shocked or surprised. And I just going back to Will's dad. Um, Vivian said something to Phil, like we owe him. I don't know, something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like we owe him, or this is the least we can do, or something like that. Based on his dad. And my eyebrows were like, what? Like, what does that mean? So I'm interested to see what that looks like. But just going back to Ashley, yeah. I'm interested to see. I mean, is she gonna sing? Like, is she gonna be in music?
mhm.
So it doesn't look like it. Um, so I'm interested to see what
I,
happens and
I
what
don't I
first.
don't know what's going to happen. I know they're going to explore the gender sexuality thing with her. I can tell. But she is playing the loving kid she was like in the original series.
She is.
Um, So I think, that's
I
good because it seems like she always loved Will. But I get a vibe. I don't know how you guys swing it with Carlton. Something happened with Will and Carlton to me, maybe when he was younger. Something
It's
happened,
done.
and I don't know
Are we having
what.
the Carlton talk? Are we
You
having the
don't just
Carlton
hate
talk?
a person that you never see. You're not just like, oh, I hate everybody that I've never seen. I'm like, this dude has a straight hate for
Hey,
Will. I mean, you can feel it through the screen. I'm like,
yeah,
whoo,
it's
it's
palpable.
chilly up in there. And
I
so to me, it's like, what I want to know when that's going to be revealed, why they dislike each other so much.
Yeah.
so okay, so my thing, so back to Ashley just for like a quick second. Like I was hoping in that first episode that we would get more of Ashley and Will's relationship because when Ashley and Will first meet, like they hit it off like that. So out of the three cousins, Ashley and Will hit it off quickly, and like you, that was missing in that first episode,
It was.
which was still nice to see when we get Hillary being so loving and opening to him when we first meet Hillary. Shout out to Coco Jones because I think she's a phenomenal Hillary. I love this Hillary. Um, and then, but with Carlton though, it's interesting to see people's responses about Carlton because my thought process is the difference between the Carlton of the 90s and the Carlton of today is you don't have the laugh track. And he's not considered the butt of the jokes. He's like back in the sitcoms, when Will would kind of clown him, he was kind of the butt of the jokes in the fact that he's just this slightly corny, preppy kid. And then you have Carlton here, and he's practically the cool kid at his school. He's not really corny. Um, but I would think that if we took out the laugh track, Carlton wouldn't be that different than he is right now. The entitled kind of um he was condescending to Will back in sitcom too, and very uppity, and like, well, you can't really do that. We're not in the hood type of dialogue. Like he did that in a way that it was kind of like haha corny jokey haha in the sitcom, whereas here it's supposed to be serious.
I don't think he's that different at all. I'm very much in agreement with you. He was hateful when Will showed up to in the original sitcom. He didn't want him there. You're taking my dad away, spending too much time with my father. Get out of here. I don't want you here. He was kind of a king bee in the old school as well.
Mhm.
I think, like I said, they just flipped it where we feel the dramatics of it. We
Mhm.
feel the tension of it. This is not the first time any of these kids have actually met. At some point in time, you can tell they've all spent some time together. It's
Right.
just the first time that they've kind of seen each other in a long time. And instead of Carlton taking the path of the strong black kid and doing the black kid things, basketball and football and all those things, he said, to me, he chose to conquer it the same way the old Carlton did in the old series. I'm just going to go with what the white people do. I'm going to do what my classmates are doing. And that way I get to, in Carlton's mind, I've always felt like he did that, not because he was corny or sellout, but because he felt it was the path of least resistance.
Hmm.
And I think the new Carlton's the same way. I'll go play lacrosse instead of b-ball, and then I can be a star in their eyes because I'm not playing a traditional black sport. So I don't
Right.
know.
I mean, I really appreciate different viewpoints. I mean, because I was ready to go and give the new Carlton an uppercut, but
Oh, it still feel
I
that way
was,
too.
yeah, but now I'm thinking without that laugh track and without the comedic spin, they would be the same. And yeah, the dramatics are increased. I mean, he just feels like vindictive, and I'm out to get him, and I'm out to like ruin his name and slander him and all that. So, but I like the character. I think it shows us, not just the issue between the sisters, but now it's the cousins who have the issues as well. So both of those storylines need to break open. I do too want to know what happened. Why, like Carlton, why do you feel this way? About your cousin. I mean, and it could just be like an elitist attitude, like, oh, he's beneath me. This peasant, he lives in Philly, the ghetto. Or something really could have happened because that level of hate and that level of like, get back and I'm gonna destroy your name. No, that's like an accumulation of many years of something. I think maybe I don't know, but it's not just two things happen. Like something might have happened. So I'm
There's
interested to see
yeah,
how that
there's a
happened.
difference between like visiting your cousin and have to see them for like a weekend family reunion as opposed to, oh, this guy is moving in and living with us and he's going to be
Yeah,
spending the rest of his high school career with us. Like
And
this
it
guy's going
sounds
to be
like
a part of my life.
yeah,
maybe the moms are the ones that cut the communication off, the sisters,
I think
because of
so.
whatever happened with them. They were like, instead of we just want nobody will deal with anybody, and it could have been a hurt of you could have still tried to call me, you could have still tried to be my cousin.
Sure.
Who knows? You can tell in the very first episode that he feels like Will's going to outshine him early on,
Oh yeah,
because you can tell when he walks in that room, he does really shine, and Carlton has to really work at that. And so I think he resents that he have to do any other work he has to do to get friends. And in the old series, it was a lot like that too, because it took them
it was.
years in the old series to become friends
Hmm.
versus kind of frenemies that they were.
Right.
Mm.
I think that like the difference with like Uncle Phil and this series and the old Uncle Phil is like we have Uncle Phil that's like actively doing something. Yes, Uncle Phil before was, you know, he's a judge and he's a father, but like this one's like actively like running for office. And so like the entire family is involved with this campaign and having to hold an image. And Carlton does pretty well with like going up and upholding that image that the family's supposed to have. And then you have this outlier come in and like I'm sure like Carlton's thinking like, okay, if dad gets this political position, like I'm gonna get all these things in response to
Yeah,
that. Like, you know, we see in later episodes I'm trying to get internships and things like that. And like this kid, they don't officially know why he's here, might mess this up for me.
Yeah, and
yeah. I think that's true.
the old Uncle Phil, he started off as a lawyer. We never knew if he was in a law firm or if he was a private lawyer. And
Never
then
knew.
He was a judge at some point.
He was a
magically,
judge.
boom,
Yeah.
3 4 years into the show, he did. They showed a few episodes of him supposedly running, but he
Mhm.
won the judgeship or whatever from I think it was Sherman Hemsley or something.
Hmm.
And so I'm kind of like, okay, we only saw one or two things about that, and then boom, he was a judge. And
Right.
so we just assumed he went into this super duper tax bracket after that. So I don't think we got the full weight of somebody running for a judgeship because that's a lot.
Hmm.
And so I
That's
think
like,
it is good we're seeing this side of the pressure of him trying to become a DA and all that kind of stuff because it's going to change how they're living, whether they realize it or not.
hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I even felt some type of way about the look of the new Uncle Phil. I'm like, oh, could they have kept it originally how it was? But I'm like, I like not. He's a handsome man, yes, right, okay, but I like the dynamics he brings to the character because to me, he's very much like Carlton towards Will, in my opinion, like very much like you're kind of lower level. Will, don't come in here and mess up my life. Don't come in here and throw me off. I'm trying to do this thing. I'm trying to be a DA and I have a criminal nephew now.
Hmm.
Like those two things don't go together. So I do feel like him and Carlton share that. But then, not trying to get too far into the other episodes, but then we see, there's bonds formed that Carlton can't. And I think that's always going to be the struggle. And I agree just with what was said. Will effortlessly is himself. He shines in a room, and he's handsome. The girls flock to him. It's easy. Carlton, he has a little more uphill battle. So he's always going to be given the side eye or trying to throw like that log, on Will's bike path, which I'm like, that's interesting.
I
Hmm.
think we all have such a love for James Avery because he was just, and people, I don't care about him being jovial and kind of chubby. He still exuded intelligence in that role.
He
He
did.
always let you know, hey, I am a lawyer. I'm smart. Let me break this down to you about my nephew real quick. Like when he played the pool game and embarrassed those guys, he was like, how you think I got through college? And, blah, 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 blah. So we all have this loyalty to him. So I was with you. I'm like, who's this skinny man? But he brings it. He brings it, and I'm loving it. I didn't really rock with the new Aunt Viv at first, just because I felt like I've seen that actress in other stuff. She plays a soft type of character, but she's coming hard. So I'm like, okay, I'm feeling
She
you.
even sounds like
She does.
Janet
He
Hudson.
does.
She
So
sounds like her
I'm starting to
too.
feel her, and she's really starting to own her role. It took me a minute, but what do you guys? You said you like not Ashley,
Hillary.
what Hillary?
Hillary.
How we
Mhm.
feel about Hillary?
I love that Hillary has some layers. Like she's like within like the first 10 minutes, she's way more fleshed out and like more grounded than the Hillary of before. Because with the Hillary before, she's just very flighty and Valley girl, and but this one has some motivation and passion, and like that she's wanting something, whereas the other one just kind of like, I'm gonna live off of mom and dad and and just kind of get by.
Yeah, I agree. I love her. I love her as an actress. I love her just as a social media personality. I actually have seen her before. She was on a cooking show, or I don't know if she still does it, but she's probably pretty booked and busy now. She was on the cooking show with Terrell, who
Yes.
does like the Name That Tune kind of show.
Mm-hmm.
They're so funny. They're so hilarious. She sings like an angel,
Yes.
right? So I was so pleasantly surprised to see her. And I want to be honest, before the first episode, I didn't even look at the new cast
Yeah.
because you know what? I had written this one off. I said this is for the birds. Didn't want to see the remake. So every cast member I was seeing it for the first time when I clicked play in Peacock, right? I was so happy to see. I think I squealed like, "Oh, great!" because I knew she was gonna bring it, and
Mm-hmm.
she's still very much Hillary, despite her looks. She is Hillary, and I like that it explores the dynamics between her and her mom. We
Mm-hmm.
got hints of that right in the sitcom, the first sitcom, but like we're all saying, it was more comedic and things like that. We're able to even see their relationship that was rocky. We knew it was rocky, but now we see why. We
Mm-hmm.
get all the insight. I feel like we get like the behind the curtains on every single situation that we might have been wondering about.
I totally agree. I only saw the young man when he got casted, and I'm like, he does look a lot like, Will. I could rock with him if I choose to watch it, but I ain't get ready to watch it. So
And here we are.
Here
I
we
know
are.
I was like, I didn't want to look at the rest of that cast. And then when Hillary came on board, I thought, you know what? In a sense, they're not playing her wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because had any of that stuff been available to the Hillary of old, she would have been a social media phenomenon. We know that.
Oh
Hillary would
God,
have
she would
been
have been.
everywhere. She would have stayed at her parents' house as long as she could have. All of
Mm-hmm.
That
that
pool
stuff
house.
is true. She would have made a living off of the way people are living now, available at that time. But since it wasn't, they just kind of played her close to me, played her how
Yeah.
they played her. But she still rocked in things that people don't understand. She still had a catering business. We forget about that. She still managed to get on as a weather girl with absolutely no meteorology experience.
That's
She
true.
had
That's
a lot
true.
of
Yeah.
what do you call it? I would say she was kind of that Jill of all trades. She could rock some things out and still get it done. But her, like you said, her mom in the old series did technology just like in the new one. So, but I'm rocking with the new Hillary. The dressing, the hair, her thought process. Because to me, that's Hillary. Hillary don't want to work for nobody. Hillary don't want the riches of her family, but she likes being rich. That's what we got to understand.
Yes, they got that down. I love that. And you're right. Old Hillary would have been on TikTok, would have been on Instagram,
She would have
Facebook.
been a phenomenon, you know.
What? A huge social media presence.
He
And
would have
so
been
I
all
love
up
that
on
they
Instagram.
modernized it.
All up
All on
on
Instagram, live
all of
every
them.
day, every 2 seconds, TikToking
Yep.
it up. So I think I love that they modernized that and brought it up. That this is exactly what Hillary would have been doing. And they got the outfits down. She always dressed really eclectic, but it worked for her. This same Hillary. I'm like, that outfit doesn't make sense off of Hillary's body. But if it's on her body, I'm like, oh, that works. So I thought they did really, really good on that.
What I do like is that when you see in the next couple episodes, there is still a bit more depth to her.
Yes.
There's still depth to her because they played her flighty in the original. Ditzy Valley girl flighty, but she has more of a backbone in this remake of it.
Yeah, I like that. I like how they're touching that she wants to talk about her roots as a Black person. The old Hillary was more kind of like, no, I want to be on Rodeo Drive with my little friends and stuff like that. But this one's like, you're not gonna disrespect me. You're not gonna respect who I am, And so I'm liking that, and um, I'm kind of wanting to see what they're gonna do with her, you know, as to where her character's gonna go, because she's coming out really good in the show to me out of everybody.
Really strong. And I like that it was mentioned, that it seems like her and Will are getting that cousin bond, so they even kind of switched that. I mean, I like that, and it makes more sense because I think they're closer in age. So in the first sitcom, it seemed like okay, Ashley was quite a few years younger than him, but they got close. But it would make more sense for her to be closer to Hillary because they're the same age. So whoever thought of that, good job, great job. That was a great concept and thought process because it would make more sense for them to be hanging out, maybe clubbing or going to parties together because they're around the same age.
And I when I think about that makes sense. The same way they're flushing out her and Jazz. In the first episode, we see Jazz come on the scene. I love it because I think we often wonder, what does Jazz do for a living in the first show, because he never bothered Will about money. He never seemed to have any cares in the world. So this show is kind of showing behind the scenes. He's a hustler. He's got a lot of things happening, and he's out here Uber driving and making quite a bit of money doing it. So I'm liking the new Jazz, and they're not playing him. So they played him to me flighty as well. They're not playing him so flighty in this one. I like that.
Yeah, he seems very wise in this one. He
Yeah,
has
he's got some
some
depth.
he has some depth. I think that's probably one of the best things about it is that because it's a drama series and it's an hour long, you can flesh out these characters more and flesh out these stories a little bit longer that you wouldn't be able to do in like a 22-minute sitcom.
No,
Very true, but I'm not gonna lie. I did want to see if they were gonna be tossing Jazz out.
I
Just
did
gotta do
too.
it one. You just need to do it one good
Okay,
time.
In the
One good
future,
time.
I
One good
did
time.
I
too in the
was
future.
like, when he came and he interacted with Uncle Phil, I was like, oh, this is gonna be so great. Just one good toss out. But I know it's more dramatic, and I'm like, oh. And Jazz is handsome as well. I
I
mean, he has
like
these
that. I
nice
was like,
eyes.
he's a little cutie.
I was like, Jazz, like his eyes were really nice, just beautiful man. And I'm like, oh, this is great. He's not gonna be right, not so flighty, so like foolish class clown, like court jesterish. And right, we get a chance to see what he does. We know, okay, with DJ Jazz, we know he was into certain things, but we didn't know. And I love that we're just getting like that peel back. Like, here's what you knew, and here's what is really happening behind the scenes. I've always been a behind the scenes person. I'm like, what's behind there? The fact that we get a chance to see it, I'm like, oh, this is wonderful.
And I would love to see when the other sisters are coming into play. Where are the other two sisters?
I
What
want to see. I
are
want
they
to see the
coming into
reunion.
play?
Are they?
It has
What's
to.
going to
It has
happen
to
when they
happen.
do? So I'm just like, the first episode really gets us to understand how he got into the mess. And Lord have mercy, my dryer. It seems like it's always on. Sorry, y'all. um, how he gets into the mess. And the biggest issue I took from that first episode was just how much Will could have avoided a lot of things that had happened. What if he had just made one different decision in that first episode?
A lot
What?
of pride. He's very prideful.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say that
Very,
too.
very prideful.
Extremely prideful. And I think it was just such a good example to the young black males of today. How your pride, your ego can have you across the coast, right? Not being where you love. I love that. And I think that a lot of black males, young black males around that age group who play ball, right? Who full of testosterone, right? That's all that's on the court, ribbon and John back and forth. But look, pay attention to what happened. Don't end up like Will, that one thing. And even Trey was like, do you really have to do this? He was kind of that voice of reason. The power dynamic shifted a little bit because Will kind of seems above, like the leader. And he asked him, like, hey, do you have to do this? Like, yeah, all he had to do was not do it. And that's easier said than done because I've been in some situations where I'm like, Steph, you don't need to do this. You don't need to say this. But that pride, when that gets a hold of you, like a choke hold on you, you have to act it out. But it was a really good example of what not to do, and I love that they really showed that.
I agree. I think he also got to see that flip where Trey was going to go to the extreme to protect, and Will wasn't really ready for that, but it just showed how fast everything can get out of control when the wrong decisions are made. And he's like, now you're at everybody's mercy. And people don't understand, someone from the hood and who thinks that way, they don't stop thinking that way. Trey's like, man, we messing with the wrong guy. And that shows as it goes on in that first episode what can happen, and they just don't let anything go, because in our minds we're like, it's not that deep, dude, let it go. In his mind, I'm gonna hunt this kid down and kill him.
And I appreciate how like they still pull things back from Philly too. So you like within the episode. So like yeah, he's still trying to check on his friend Trey, finding out that Trey is in danger and he's in danger, and like yes, he's living his life and trying to live his life in Bel Air, but like there's stuff going on back home that he's worried about. Like that's still a concerning thing for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that they kept tying it back and forth. Even how they brought those Philly cookies. I don't even know about them, but I sure wanted to try them. The Philly cookies, to Aunt Viv. I was like, ooh, what are those? I don't think we ever saw that in the original series. That little touch, I said, okay, this is great. And how even Aunt Viv, she kind of switched back into her Philly nature. That's how it is. You leave somewhere, and then people from back home come, and you're reminded of the lingo, of the slang, of everything like that. I love that part too.
And the thing is, I don't even think I really connected the fact that like Aunt Viv was also from Philly, like
From
Will was
Philly.
from Philly. Like it didn't connect in my brain when I was watching the sitcom that like all these sisters, they're all from the same place. But like for me, I would have thought like, oh, maybe his mom just moved to Philly and that's just where he was born and they grew up. But no, like they're from Philly and like that's where their family should be from. And so like being able to connect Viv and Will in that way, that seems way more solid.
So I like how, like you guys talk about the cookies, they brought on the language, some of the slang and different ways. She just rolled right into it, and she was like, oh, I miss it. And so we get to see that little glimmer. And I don't remember, but I think all three of the sisters stayed back except her. So is there an issue that she left Philadelphia? Is there an issue that she went all the way to Bel Air and got married and had this different life? And so it gets you to wondering what's going to transpire as to why there is a glitch in the family, because the first show, it just acted like there was everything wrong. And I always wondered, like you said, you're trying, the mom is feeling like he's going to come back at some point. And Viv is more so kind of like he's got opportunities now. So, as we're kind of seeing, things pan out, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, two things. I too didn't realize that Aunt Viv is from Philly. I mean, just didn't make the connection. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right, because this is his aunt. I think sometimes we just like separated all. I know I did. And then I'm like, okay, Aunt Viv was like, let Will choose. While Vi was like, I'm going to make the decision for him. That's even a difference in parenting styles. We're talking about their relationship is just as separate as the coast that they live on, right? Like one's on the West Coast, one's on the East Coast. They're separate in basically every single thing that they do. We're talking about finances, talking about how you raise your kids, how the worldview, right? Money changes your worldview. You're exposed to more things. So how they feel about Will, what they want him to do. So I love that dynamic. And I want to see if the other two sisters come in, how that will look. And I was gonna say, I thought that Will's mom, she looked like the original. She reminded me of her, so I thought they did good casting on that.
I think so as well. She looks a lot like her. She makes you feel like she could be Will's mom.
Yeah, all right. So this was episode one. Thought it was amazing. Can't wait to see how the rest of the series plays out. We got so much information in this episode that it just like pulls you in, kind of hooks you in and reels you in. So I'm excited just to see what else happens on Bel Air.
Same here. Great.
I am too. I felt like we needed 90 minutes in episode 1, but they didn't give us that. So it's all good. We just have to keep rocking with it. And yeah, I'm kind of hooked. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same here.
we're hooked. All right, y'all. So this has been Airing Our Thoughts. We just covered episode 1. Please look out for episode 2. We'll be covering all the episodes. Please, in the comments, in the chat, tell us how you felt. What did you think about it? Did you agree or disagree? We'll respectfully disagree and want to hear your opinions. Thank you for checking us out. We will be back with the rest of the episodes. Bye.
Bye.